any journalists who may be here that our panel of Iranian experts and activists will be participating, present at the UPR tomorrow, and will be issuing I have a press conference afterwards, tomorrow afternoon, with a response to tomorrow's proceedings. So we'll get to hear from all of you again tomorrow, and we already have a number of journalists who have arranged interviews, and in fact, Mohammed was just interviewed in a news report that came out today in the Daily Beast entitled "The Real Reason Iran Killed This Woman for Defending Herself." The execution of Rehana Jabari has brought worldwide condemnation of the Tehran regime, but critics may be missing the real story. You can read that on the Daily Beast. It was posted yesterday. Our next speaker today is Marina Nemat. She is someone who is known to a number of us here in Geneva and worldwide as an outspoken activist for human rights in Iran. She is the author of a best-selling memoir on her experiences. She was jailed as a youngster at the age of 16, a 16-year-old political prisoner in Tehran. During her incarceration for 2 years in the infamous Evin prison, she was tortured, faced execution, and was raped by a prison guard who she was forced to marry. Marina has won numerous human rights awards here in Europe, and including earlier this year in Geneva. It was our honor to issue Marina with the Morris Abram Human Rights Award, named after our founder, the civil rights leader who was the attorney with Martin Luther King Jr. And certainly there was no more fitting person than to give this award than to someone who has dedicated her life to working for human rights of her people and for the cause of universal human rights. Marina Nemat.
Thank you, Hilal. Again, just like Sohrab, I have to say that I'm grateful to you and Watch. Everybody there, especially Hilal, they have been good friends, supporters, and for the first time it was the UN Watch that gave me the opportunity for the very first time to actually look at the people who are the representatives of the government that tortured and raped me at the age of 16. I looked at them as I was speaking at the UN Human Rights Council last year, and I was looking at them. I was hoping that they would have the courage to look at me, but not for a moment did they look up. But I was happy to be there because I have many friends who are buried in mass graves in Iran, and I can tell them that I did this for you. Finally, after all of these years, after all of this silence, after all of these innocent dead, I finally looked at them in an international, in a place that all nations come together at the UN. So thank you so much, Hilal. It meant the world to me, and it meant the world to the innocent buried in mass graves in Iran. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. There is no sugarcoating here. When I read this report, I read it yesterday at the airport as I was waiting for my flight, I laughed out loud. And people who were sitting around me, they looked at me funny, and I didn't give a damn. It was like as if the Iran in this report is in another galaxy, on another planet. Are you kidding me? Iran doesn't torture? That's funny. Iran respects women's rights? Yeah, right. Iran respects the rights of religious minorities? Ha ha ha. I'm a Christian. I am from a Christian family. I grew up in Iran. They forced me to convert to Islam in prison. Is that respect for religion? Many of my family are members of the Baha'i faith. Many members of the Baha'i faith are right now in prison in Iran, not to mention Christians in prison in Iran. Is that freedom of religion? It's like as if they hired a fiction writer. I really think they hired a fiction writer, and that fiction writer wrote this And I just hope that there is somebody here at the UN who would hold them accountable. Because if not, it would mean that anybody can say anything at the United Nations and get away with it. Basically get away with absolutely bloody murder. And they have been doing it for like what, 35 years? How many innocents have died in Iran? I was arrested when I was 16 years old. Yeah, and I'm sitting right here, and I'm sitting here looking right at you. They took me when I was 16 years old. I was a naive kid. I was 13 when the revolution happened. My father was a ballroom dancing instructor in Tehran. My mother was a hairdresser. I grew up between the sounds of the cha-cha and the tango and women with really big poofy hair. I was in love with Donny Osmond. I wanted to become a medical doctor. I loved reading Jane Austen. I was not a member of any political party, organization, or anything. All I wanted to do was to go to school, become a doctor. All I wanted to do was to go out with my boyfriend. All I wanted to do was to be able to wear a bikini on the beach and just have fun. Just the way we used to before the revolution. I mean, yeah, the Shah was dictator, but at least we had personal freedoms. I just wanted to have fun, like any other teenager would in the world. And then the revolution happened. The Cultural Revolution happened very soon after the revolution succeeded, and they replaced our teachers with fanatic young women who were not qualified to teach. And we were supposed to swallow it. We were supposed to swallow 8 hours of propaganda a day. And imagine if you have grown up just studying maths and sciences and literature and English, and then suddenly you're all replaced with religious propaganda. What are you going to do? Are you just going to swallow it? No. So I spoke out. I said to the calculus teacher to teach calculus into the propaganda. And she said, "You don't like what I teach, leave." I did. And most of my classmates followed. And this was the beginning of a school-wide strike. So we were arrested. We were taken to Evin prison. The wave of mass arrest of young people began in 1981. Iran claims that it doesn't torture. Well, let me tell you my side of the story. In 1982, when they took me to Evin prison, they blindfolded me. Then they made me sit down in a hallway on the floor for hours. No food, no water, no nothing. Nobody would even talk to you. If you said anything, a guard would come and kick you. So eventually they took me for interrogation. They asked me questions and I answered them truthfully. I was 16. I had no reason to lie. And they asked me if I had attended protest rallies. Yes, I had. And I told the truth. It was not some state secret or something. Everything they asked me, I answered truthfully. But they didn't like what I said, or they didn't like me in general. They took me to another room. They tied me to a bare wooden bed. They took off my socks and my shoes, and they lashed the soles of my feet with a length of cable. And when I say cable, I don't mean wire, I mean industrial cable. About 1 inch thick, full rubber, heavy rubber. Why do they do that? Because your nerve ends are in your feet. And they yelled, "Allahu Akbar, God is great," as they did it. It makes me wonder what kind of God allows full-grown men to beat up 16-year-old girls. I'm sorry, that's beyond me. And they beat me and beat me and beat me. They were not even asking anything. They were just beating. Eventually they stopped. I sat up, I looked at my feet, and I laughed my head off because it was funny. They looked like overgrown party balloons with toes on them, color indigo blue. Then they make you walk, they beat you again. They make you walk, they beat you again. Why? Why do they stagger? Because if they keep beating you, your skin would break and you would die from bleeding and infection. But the point is to make you suffer as long as possible. They are not trying to kill you. They are trying to kill your soul. That's what torture does. Torture kills the soul. And not only your soul, but the soul of your family, your community, your country, and the world. And this is why torture is a crime against humanity. So eventually they stopped, they made me walk, they beat me again, all of that, and they gave me a death sentence. For what? For having spoken up against the regime. Then they reduced it to life in prison, they sent me to the cell block. One of my very dear friends, she was my classmate since the 3rd grade. She was a Zoroastrian. She was the kindest, most generous person I had ever met, Shahnoush Behzadi. She was arrested before I was. She was arrested in September 1981. And she was executed in October 1981. She was 15. We don't even know where she's buried. They killed her brother and then they executed her. Her mother was in prison too. What I'm doing today, I'm doing for Shahnoush. For so many years, I swallowed it. Why? Because I was afraid of them. Because I was afraid of the pain, because I was afraid of dying. But I have arrived, thanks be to God, I have arrived at a place that I'm not afraid anymore. My friend Shahnoush died at 15. I'm now 49. I'm in overtime. I owe my life to my friends in prison. They are the ones who gave me hope. They are the ones who made me survive. So I cannot take my life lightly. I need to bear witness against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't want any of the officials of the Islamic Republic to be tortured. I don't want any of them to be put to death. You know why? Because evil cannot cure evil. Because torture is a crime against humanity. They gave me documents to sign are under torture, and I signed everything. Do you think I read them? No. And now they have executed Rayhani Jabari. They say she confessed to killing this guy. Well, of course she confessed. I would have confessed I was Jesus Christ under torture. I would have confessed I was a CIA spy when I was an innocent 16-year-old girl. This is not fairness. In Iran, it is illegal for a Muslim to convert to another religion. This is apostasy according to Iranian law. This fiction you see here on this report is just that. It's fiction. According to Iranian law, there is no freedom of religion in Iran. Right now, there are members of religious minorities, many of them in prison, and it is illegal for a Muslim to convert to any other religion. This is a fact. And the testimony of a woman, according to Iranian law, is worth half of a man. The testimony of a member of a religious minority is worth half of a Muslim. This is not a country that respects the rights of minorities or women. And this is a fact. The people of Iran deserve better than this. So I ask you not to allow the Islamic Republic of Iran to get away with such obvious lies. There are so many people who are more than willing to testify about them. The ones who were tortured, the ones who lost loved ones, we are more than willing to testify. Thank you so much for your time.